WarGames is a 1983 American Cold War science fiction film written by Lawrence Lasker and Walter F. Parks and directed by John Badham. The film stars Matthew Broderick, Dabney Coleman, John Wood, and Ally Sheedy. The film follows David Lightman, a young hacker who unwittingly accesses WOPR, a United States military supercomputer program to predict possible outcomes of nuclear war. Lightman gets WOPR to run a nuclear war simulation, originally believing it to be a computer game. The simulation causes a national nuclear missile scare and nearly starts World War III. The film was a box office success, costing $12 million and grossing $79,567,667 after 5 months in the United States and Canada. The film was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. A sequel, WarGames, The Dead Code, was released direct-to-DVD on July 29, 2008. Plot: during a surprise drill of a nuclear attack, many United States Air Force strategic missile wing missileers prove unwilling to turn a required key to launch a missile strike. Such refusals convince John McKittrick and other systems engineers at NORAD that command of missile silos must be maintained through automation, without human intervention. Control is given to a NORAD supercomputer named WOPR, programmed to continuously run military simulations and learn over time. David Lightman is a bright but unmotivated Seattle high school student and hacker. After receiving a failing grade in school, he uses his IMSAI 8080 microcomputer to hack into the district's computer system. He then changes his grade and does the same for his friend and classmate Jennifer Mack. Later, while dialing every number in Sunnyvale, California to find a set of forthcoming computer games, a computer that does not identify itself intrigues David. On the computer he finds a list of games, starting with general strategy games like chess, checkers, backgammon, and poker, and then progressing to titles like theater-wide biotoxic and chemical warfare, and global thermonuclear war, but cannot proceed further. 2 of his hacker friends explain the concept of a backdoor password and suggest tracking down the Falcon referenced in Falcon's Maze, the first game listed. David discovers that Stephen Falcon is an early artificial intelligence researcher, and guesses correctly that his dead son's name Joshua is the backdoor password. David does not know that the Sunnyvale phone number connects to WOPR, or Joshua, at Cheyenne Mountain. He starts a game of global thermonuclear war, playing as the Soviet Union. The computer starts a simulation that briefly convinces the military personnel at NORAD that actual Soviet nuclear missiles are inbound. While they defuse the situation, Joshua nonetheless continues the simulation to trigger the scenario and win the game. It continuously feeds false data such as Soviet bomber incursions and submarine deployments to the humans at NORAD, pushing them into lowering the DEFCON level and toward a retaliation that will start World War III. David learns the true nature of his actions from a news broadcast, and the FBI arrests him and takes him to NORAD. He realizes that Joshua is behind the NORAD alerts but fails to convince McKittrick and faces imprisonment. David escapes NORAD by joining a tourist group and, with Jennifer's help, travels to the Oregon island where the widowed Falcon now lives. David and Jennifer find that Falcon has become despondent and believes that nuclear war is inevitable. The teenagers convince Falcon that he should return to NORAD to stop Joshua. The computer stages a massive Soviet first strike with hundreds of missiles, submarines, and bombers. Believing the attack to be genuine, NORAD prepares to retaliate. Falcon, David, and Jennifer convince military officials to cancel the second strike and ride out the non-existent attack. Joshua tries to launch the missiles itself, however, using a brute force attack to obtain the launch code. Without humans in the silos as a safeguard, the computer will trigger a mass launch. All attempts to log in and order Joshua to cancel the countdown fail, and all weapons will launch if the computer is disabled. Instead, Falcon and David direct the computer to play tic-tac-toe against itself. When both players play flawlessly, tic-tac-toe games always end in a draw. This results in a long string of ties, forcing the computer to learn the concept of an unwinnable game. Joshua obtains the missile code, but before launching, it cycles through all the nuclear war scenarios it has devised, finding they too all result in stalemates. Having discovered the concept of mutually assured destruction, the computer concludes that nuclear warfare is a strange game in which the only winning move is not to play. Joshua then offers to play a nice game of chess, and relinquishes control of NORAD and the missiles. Cast: Matthew Broderick as David Lightman, Dabney Coleman as Dr. John McKittrick, John Wood as Dr. Stephen Falcon, and the voice of Joshua WOPR Ally Sheedy as Jennifer Mack, Barry Corbin as General Jack Beringer, Wannin Clay as Pat Ely, Dennis Lipscomb as Watson, Joe Dorsey as Colonel Joe Conley, Michael Ensign as Beringer's assistant, John Spencer as Captain Jerry Lawson, Michael Madsen as First Lieutenant Steve Phelps, Alan Blumenfeld as Mr. Liggett, Maury Chaikin as Jim Sting, Eddie Deason as Melvin, Art LaFleur as Guard Gainsbourg, Stack Pierce as Airman, Stephen Lee as Sergeant Schneider, Jesse D. Goins as Sergeant, James Ackerman as Joshua Falcon. Production, development on WarGames began in 1979, when writers Walter F. Parks and Lawrence Lasker developed an idea for a script called The Genius, about a dying scientist and the only person in the world who understands him, a rebellious kid who's too smart for his own good. Lasker was inspired by a television special presented by Peter Ustinov on several geniuses including Stephen Hawking. Lasker said, "I found the predicament Hawking was in fascinating, that he might one day figure out the unified field theory and not be able to tell anyone, because of his progressive ALS. So there was this idea that he'd need a successor. And who would that be? Maybe this kid, a juvenile delinquent whose problem was that nobody realized he was too smart for his environment." The concept of computers and hacking as part of the film was not yet present. The Genius began its transformation into WarGames when Parks and Lasker met Peter Schwartz from the Stanford Research Institute. There was a new subculture of extremely bright kids developing into what would become known as hackers, said Schwartz. Schwartz made the connection between youth, computers, gaming, and the military. Parks and Lasker came up with several different military-themed plotlines prior to the final story. One version of the script had an early version of WOPR named Uncle Ollie, or OLI, a space-based offensive laser run by an intelligent program, but this idea was discarded because it was too speculative. Director John Badham coined the name WOPR, feeling that the name of NORAD's SIOP was boring, and told you nothing. The name WOPR played off of the Whopper hamburger, and a general sense of something going wop. David Lightman was modeled on David Scott Lewis, a hacking enthusiast Parks and Lasker met. Falcon was inspired by Stephen Hawking with the appearance of John Lennon, who was interested in the role. General Beringer was based on James V. Hartinger, the then Commander-in-Chief of NORAD, who Parks and Lasker met while visiting the base, and who, like Beringer, favored keeping humans in the decision loop. The WOPR computer as seen in the film was a prop created in Culver City, California, by members of the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees Local 44. It was designed by production designer Jeffrey Kirkland based on some pictures he had of early tabulating machines, and metal furniture, consoles, and cabinets used particularly in the U.S. military in the 1940s and 50s. They were adapted in drawings and concepts by art director Angelo Graham. WOPR was operated by a crew member sitting inside the computer, entering commands into an Apple II at the director's instruction. The prop was broken up for scrap after production was completed. A replica was built for a 2006 AT&T commercial. Filming: Martin Brest was originally hired as director but was fired after 12 days of shooting because of an on-set argument with the producers, and replaced with John Badham. Several of the scenes shot by Brest remain in the final film. Badham said that, Brest had taken a somewhat dark approach to the story and the way it was shot. It was like, Broderick and Sheedy were doing some Nazi undercover thing. So it was my job to make it seem like they were having fun, and that it was exciting. According to Badham, Broderick and Sheedy were stiff as boards when they came onto the sound stage, having both breasts dark vision and the idea that they would soon be fired. Badham did 12 14 takes of the first shot to loosen the actors up. At one point, Badham decided to have a race with the two actors around the soundstage, with the one who came last having to sing a song to the crew. Badham lost and sang The Happy Wanderer, the silliest song he could think of. Tom Mankiewicz says he wrote some additional scenes during shooting which were used. Release: WarGames did well at the North American box office, earning $79,567,667, the fifth highest of 1983. The film was screened out of competition at the 1983 Cannes Film Festival. President Reagan, a family friend of Lasker, watched the film and discussed the plot with members of Congress. Reception: critical response: a film received universal acclaim. Film review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes reported that 92% of sampled critics gave the film positive reviews and that it got a rating average of 7.5 out of 10. Film critic Roger Ebert gave the film 4 out of 4 stars, calling it an amazingly entertaining thriller, and one of the best films so far this year, with a wonderful ending. Softline praised the film as being completely original. Unlike other computer-related films like Tron that could exist in substantially the same form with some other plot, WarGames could not exist if the microcomputer did not exist. It takes the micro and telecommunications as a Euro part of the middle-class American landscape. The magazine praised the film as very funny, excruciatingly suspenseful, and endlessly inventive. This movie is right on the mark. Authentic even when highly improbable. Computer Gaming World stated that WarGames is plausible enough to intrigue and terrifying enough to excite. It makes one think, as well as feel, all the way, raised several moral questions about technology and society, and recommended the film to computer hobbyists of all kinds. Accolades: WarGames was nominated for 3 Academy Awards: Best Cinematography, Sound, and Writing, Screenplay written directly for the screen. The company that provided the large screens used to display the tactical situations seen in the NORAD set employed a new design that was super bright, enabling the displays to be filmed live. No post-production work was needed. For this, the company was awarded an Academy Scientific and Technical Award. Influence: Bulletin board system operators reported an unusual rise in activity in 1984. Which at least one CISOP attributed to WarGames introducing viewers to modems. The scenes showing Lightman's computer dialing every number in Sunnyvale led to the term war dialing, a technique of using a modem to scan a list of telephone numbers to search for unknown computers, and indirectly to the newer term war driving. Video games: a video game, WarGames was released for the ColecoVision in 1983 and ported to the Atari 8-bit family and Commodore 64 in 1984. It played similarly to the NORAD side of the global thermonuclear war game, where the United States had to be defended from a Soviet strike by placing bases and weapons at strategic points. WarGames, DEFCON 1, a real-time strategy game that was only loosely related to the film, was released for the PlayStation and PC in 1998. A tile-matching video game, WarGames, WOPR, was released for iOS and Android devices in 2012. A game inspired by the film, called Computer War from Thorn-Emi, in which the player must track and shoot down ICBMs as well as crack a computer code, was released for the Atari 8-bit family, TI-99 A and Commodore VIC-20. The film also inspired the introversion game DEFCON. Soundtrack: the film's music was composed and conducted by Arthur B. Rubinstein. A soundtrack album including songs and dialogue excerpts was released by Polydor. Intrada Records issued an expanded release in 2008 with a complete score, without the dialogue. Sequel and possible remake: in November 2006, pre-production began on a sequel, titled WarGames: The Dead Code. It was directed by Stuart Gillard, and starred Matt Lanter as a hacker named Wolf Farmer facing off with a government supercomputer called Ripley. MGM released the sequel directly to DVD on July 29, 2008 along with the 25th anniversary edition DVD of WarGames. To promote the sequel, The film returned to selected theaters as a one-night-only 25th anniversary event on July 24, 2008. There have been various rumors of reboots. It was reported in February 2009 that Leonardo DiCaprio was looking to produce one. Then in 2011 MGM Studios was said to be planning a reboot with Seth Gordon signed on to direct, although no writers or cast were yet on board. See also HP 9845C, computer used to generate the war room graphics, real Soviet nuclear false alarm incident, references. External links, official website, WarGames at the Internet Movie Database, WarGames at the TCM Movie Database, WarGames at AllMovie, WarGames at Box Office Mojo, the IMSAI computer used in the film.